Hi folks, and welcome to another episode of Careers and Coffee. I'm absolutely delighted to be welcoming on Christine Hodgson CBE. So Christine is the Chair of the Careers Enterprise Company, Chair of Severn Trent, and also Non-Executive Director of Standard Chartered Bank. So we're going to have a brilliant conversation today, learn more about her career, some advice to young people, and some of the industries and sectors that she works in. So we're going to bring in Christine to talk to us a little bit more this afternoon. Christine, welcome. How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you very much for inviting me, Jordan.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So to kick off with, tell me a little bit more about your roles, because I think that's one of the longest intros I've had to do so far. So tell me a little bit more.
Well, they're all non-executive roles, so which basically means that they're part-time in nature. So my main job is a chair at Severn Trent, which, as many of you know, is a water and waste services company based in the Midlands. It's a FTSE 100 company. So I just took over there at 1st of April. You mentioned Standard Chartered. It's a global bank, particularly operating in emerging markets, and I've been on the board there for 6.5 years. And finally, I am the chair at the Careers and Enterprise Company, which is very pertinent for the conversation we're having today. That I was asked to set that up 5 years ago, and with the purpose of helping bring together businesses and schools to help prepare and inspire young people for the world of work. So, yeah, that's my 3 jobs.
Fantastic, thank you. And what is the role of a chair? So what's the role of a chair, and also what is a non-exec director as well?
Well, the role of the chair is to really make sure that the company is well governed, to make sure that there's a good management team. So it's the chief exec that does all the hard work, and they look after the executive team. And so the non-exec chairman is somebody who is not involved in the day-to-day running, but they're there to just make sure that there's good governance, there's a good exec team in place, and that's the prime role of the non-exec.
That's fantastic.
They're independent. They're independent, basically, independent from the running of the company.
Brilliant, thank you, Christine. And now I'm going to rewind the clocks a little bit back to when Christine was at school. What was school like for you, and what was the careers advice like for you back when you were at school?
Well, I went to a great grammar school up in Blackpool, and it was unique. It was the only school in the country that was actually owned by Church of England, by the Diocese of Blackburn. My careers advice was terrible. There was a hut at the bottom of the school field with a few pamphlets in it, and at lunchtime, if you wanted to keep out of the rain, you used to go and flick through these pamphlets, and we really had very little clue of what anything was about. I mean, we were encouraged to go to university, and that's what I did. I chose a course at Loughborough. Actually, I chose the wrong course initially. I went to do banking and finance, and when I got there, I discovered I didn't like banking and finance at all. And so after the first year, I switched to accounting and finance, and the rest is history. I went on to become a chartered accountant and went from there. But that was how it all started. Yeah, with not very good careers advice at school.
So, I mean, talking about that hut at the bottom of the field, I mean, things have definitely changed. And your role at the Careers Enterprise Company as chair, what can a young person expect in 2020 from the careers and IAG advice they get at school?
Well, I would hope that these days a young person would get lots of encounters with the world of work, because, evidence shows that if a young person gets 4 or more encounters with the world of work while they're at secondary school, then on average, they're going to be 5 times less likely to end up unemployed, and on average, they'll earn 18% more. So I think it's really important that a young person gets lots of different connections with the world of work. It could be It could be something small. It could be listening to a talk. It could be entering an enterprise competition, or it could actually be work experience where they go and actually spend some time with an employer and really help to demystify, have that whole world of work demystified for them. So I would hope they'd get some personal guidance, they'd get some information about what the labour market's all about, but most importantly, they get those encounters with the world of work.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And what's talking about encounters with the world of work? Obviously, work experience is one of those. What's your advice to a business and also a student about how to make work experience as meaningful as possible? Because I know that you're a huge advocate for work experience and encounters.
Yeah. I think it's a great. I think that's a really great question. I think as an employer, I think what you've got to do is put a bit of effort in. So just opening your doors and saying to a young person, follow me around for the week, or for the day, or for 2 days, or however long it is, has some value, but actually then you can do things that are much more valuable for the young person, which is, get them involved. Think about it through their eyes. They'll be terrified or anxious coming into this work environment. So think about how you can make it fun. I mean, when I was up until the end of March, I was chair at Capgemini, which is a technology services business. And we used to bring people in and we used to get them trying to solve real problems that we were working on with our clients, and show them how their skills and their knowledge can be really useful. So how do you use social media to help solve crimes? Was one that we were doing with one of our clients, the Met Police. And so and I think the young people, you watch them coming in looking quite apprehensive, and then a few hours later you watch them leaving the building an inch taller, thinking, crikey, this is work, this can be fun. And so I would just urge employers to, first of all, do it, because work experience is great, and you and your colleagues will get a lot out of it, not just the young person. So one, please sign up to do it. And secondly, just give a little bit of thought, because a little bit of thought and a bit of creativity will go a long way with the young person. And then you mentioned about what's the advice to the young person.
Yeah.
Well, my advice to the young person is seize the opportunity. So, when you go and do work experience, don't just feel that you can't ask questions. Don't feel that you can't say, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Just be really curious and enjoy it, and just and you may get there and think, oh gosh, this isn't going to be the job for me. Well, that's fine. It doesn't have to be the job for you, but just enjoy it and use the opportunity to find out as much as possible about the different roles in a company, because you get far more out of a visit than you'll ever get out of reading it in a book.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic advice. And what are some of the skills that you look for in the organisations that you work with in terms of young people?
Most importantly, I love young people. In fact, I love anybody with a positive attitude. I think if people come with enthusiasm, a willingness to work hard, a willingness to learn, because that's the other key thing. When in the fast changing world of work now, you're not going to just have one skill set and that's going to be the skill set for the rest of your career. We're all going to have to adapt and learn new tricks. So a young person who comes, who's demonstrated that they are they've got an appetite to learn, they're well presented, they look like somebody who's going to be willing to contribute, wanting to contribute, and willing to learn, is frankly, that for me is as important as any qualifications on a page.
That's great. And I think another key skill, I think a lot of young people is, being organised, making sure you're managing your time. I think just coming back to your own roles as well, you've got 3 very challenging roles there. I mean, how do you manage your time? How do you sort of make sure you're taking one hat off, putting the other one on? How do you manage that?
It's a great question, and I'm very lucky that I have I have somebody who helps me schedule my diary, because the key thing is how you manage your time, and it's how you manage it so that you make sure you do everything that you need to do in terms of things that are important, and you do them in the right sequence. What you shouldn't do is just keep writing endless lists of things that you've got to do. Schedule what you need to do. So if you need to prepare for a meeting, put it in your diary, X amount of time to do it and to get ready for it. And just treat time like the precious commodity that it is. One of the things that as I've grown older, I've become to appreciate is that, time is not an endless resource. It's something that is really precious. And as you get older and you get more responsibilities and you've got, young children and you want to spend time with your children, you want to work full time as well, you've just got to make sure that you're not wasting time. You're not spending it on frivolous things, but you're just balancing it. It doesn't mean that you've got to work all the time and you can't have some fun. I mean, actually, as here we are in sort of lockdown, it's quite important not to find yourself working all the time. You could sit at a screen from first thing in the morning till last thing at night, doing video calls, doing attending this, that, and the other. And I think it's quite important to put your laptop away, go and spend some time with the family, go and do some exercise. But all of those things are perfectly possible as long as you just schedule your time. I mean, I always find as well that sometimes the people say, "Oh, can I have a meeting?" and they assume that they're going to have a meeting for an hour. Well, meetings don't have to be an hour. Meetings can just as easily be half an hour. If you're well prepared and you both know what you want to get out of the meeting, then actually there's no need to schedule something that's going to take an hour. So just challenge yourself on, okay, is this a good use of my time? Because it's a really precious commodity.
I think that's brilliant advice. I mean, when you're not sort of on Careers and Coffee or in board meetings, what are you doing just to sort of chill out?
Well, I'm lucky enough to live near the coast. So my favourite thing to do at the moment is to go out on my bike and to cycle along the promenade at Bournemouth, which is where there were millions of people last week with the hot weather. But to do that first thing in the morning when it's really quiet, it's the most beautiful coastline. And I find just cycling my bike is a really good way to clear my head, get ready for the day, and do a bit of useful exercise at the same time.
That's good to know. And we've also just got a question. And so, how did you receive your CBE? And what does that mean to you? That's an amazing recognition of your work.
Well, I was given it for services for education. So it was the Department for Education that asked me 5 years ago to set up the Careers and Enterprise Company. And, thanks to the great team that I've got working there, the company has done wonderful things. It's now working with about 80% of secondary schools in England, and a lot of young people now are getting really great work experience, work encounters. And so I felt very honoured to have this recognition. I'm extremely proud of the Careers and Enterprise Company and the work that the team have done, and felt very pleased to receive the award. Yeah.
Fantastic. And the next question, so what are the future priorities for the CEC?
The future priorities is to make sure, I mean, we've now got 40 what we call careers hubs, which are groups of schools and communities, businesses, careers leaders, all working together to give young people a meaningful careers education. And what I would love to see is those careers hubs across the whole of England, and so that's something that obviously we're talking to the Department for Education about. And I should just say one other thing, of course, that's really pertinent to COVID.
Brilliant. I'll give a shout out to New Anglia.
Yeah. And I would just say one key thing I think at the moment in this COVID world is, of course, it's really important when the schools have not, or some of the schools have not been open, or many of the schools have not been open, or for a lot of people having to be at home. We've obviously tried to do as much as possible online, and try to help young people through this difficult time. And there's a lot of young people who are going to be looking for work, and that's going to be a bit tougher. And so again, anything that we can do with our connecting businesses and schools, then we will definitely be, that's what we are trying to do to help.
Excellent, thank you. And another question. So what advice do you have for a young person to keep a positive mental attitude in today's current climate as they look to move on from secondary education or into the world of work?
I think from a mental health point of view, or mental attitude, I would say that it is difficult, but actually, there are a lot of exciting opportunities out there. I mean, the world is changing. I mean, even pre-COVID, the world was changing very fast. You're seeing how technology was changing the way that we live, the way that we work. And I think there's many opportunities for young people as there are for experienced people. In fact, certainly in the world of technology, young people who've grown up with technology from knee high. I mean, I'm so old that I didn't have a computer till I was about 30, or a computer that I didn't share with someone till I was about 30 years old. I mean, so that, can you believe that? I don't even think I had a mobile phone till I was about 25. So again, the world is very, very different, and I would say it's exciting. So I would say, some of the things I would do if I was a young person now is just be really curious. When you find yourself sitting at home or wondering what to do, just use the technology to just explore things that are out there, to watch videos, listen to people, just get some sense of what's happening, and be curious. You don't have to know, when you're leaving secondary education, you don't have to have your whole career mapped out, not at all. But just see what's out there. See what companies now, particularly in the post-COVID world, what sort of companies are doing well. Just read all about them, and just be thoughtful, and try and make as many contacts as you can. And you'll find that businesses are really willing to help, and people like sharing their experience, particularly people who've only recently gone into the world of work. So I would say stay positive, be curious, make contacts, and try and stay excited about the future.
That's great advice. Thank you, Christine. And we've just got another question in. So have you ever had a mentor throughout your career? Do you have one currently?
I don't have an official mentor, and I don't think I've ever had an official mentor. But I've had many people along the way who have given me great advice. So whether it's been my boss, so people who I've worked with directly, or whether it's just people that I've come across, and I've often felt the need or the urge to pick up the phone to people and just ask them, can you spare half an hour for a cup of coffee? And people are very generous with their time, and people have given me great nuggets of advice. And even today, as I've taken on this new role as the chair at Severn Trent, I've been picking up the phone to chairmen of FTSE 100 companies who've been doing that job for a number of years, and just said to them, give me your top pieces of advice to someone like me who's just taking over this role. And nobody has rejected my call. People have talked to me, and it's been terrific. So having people to ask advice, whether you call them a mentor or whether they're actually a boss, really useful.
And you referenced there sort of taking over the reins at Severn Trent. I mean, were you nervous taking that over? I'm sure it's filled with excitement as well, but was there a little bit of nerve about that?
I would say it was more nervous excitement than sort of fear, but it was and of course it was very strange times, because I took over on the 1st of April. We were in lockdown, so the first meetings I was chairing, they've all been online. So it's I think you obviously you're you're anxious. How is it going to work? What's it going to be like chairing meetings online? How are you going to make sure that you get the right level of interaction? But I mean, so far so good. So I would say that I no longer feel nervous. I just feel excited. I mean, I'm very lucky that it's a company that is surviving very well in COVID, during COVID, as you would expect. It's essential because, of course, we're supplying water, and never before has it been more important to supply clean water and to to manage household waste. So the company has a fantastic social purpose as well. It really looks after its colleagues, its customers, the community. So I'm actually feeling that very lucky that I got that role, and particularly in the COVID world.
And I think also talking about sort of this COVID world that we're in, a lot of organisations will have already done it or will be currently reevaluating their priorities. And I think maybe around sort of CSR, school outreach in particular, that might not be on the top of their list. Do you think businesses should be pushing that to the sidelines? What's your opinion on that?
No, absolutely not. I think quite the opposite. And I think I've been very pleased to see government making announcements such as, every young person should get an apprenticeship. And I think, they've got government and business and frankly, the voluntary sector. I think everybody's got to work together now to work out, okay, what is the best way that we're going to recover from COVID? You've seen lots of announcements this week, not just on apprenticeships, but on build or build back better. So how do we do good capital infrastructure projects? How do we make sure they're good for the environment? And how do we make sure they're good for jobs? So I think the government is making all the right steps. And I think together with business and business opening the doors to young people, I think it's never been more important that engagement and those experiences carry on. So I would urge all companies, please do even more than you were doing before.
That's excellent, thank you. And whilst we're talking about current affairs as well, you've long been a champion for diversity and inclusion in the workplace. Yep. With everything that's been going on, particularly around sort of George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, how important is it that organisations are taking diversity and inclusion seriously? And do you think we're doing enough?
Yeah, I think we need to do more. So I think it's, let's be clear, diversity is really good for business. It's not something that you should just do because it looks like the right thing to do. I mean, diversity is good for business. If I think about it from a board perspective, having a board that's got different types of people, different backgrounds, different experiences, different skills is really vital to make sure that you are able to manage the company better, because you just get those different perspectives are really useful. And let's face it, the customers that you're serving are very diverse. So you need a diverse group of people to manage and to understand the market that you're trying to serve. So I think it's incredibly important. I think companies need to do more. I think they need to be really mindful of it. And I think a lot of it doesn't, if you're going to make a lot of change, you've got to take some positive steps. I don't mean positive discrimination, but I think you've got to actually try and do things differently. In my old job at Capgemini, one of the big issues there was a lack of women coming into technology. And so if you just carried on as normal, then you gradually increase the numbers. But what you've got to do is say, okay, what do we need to do differently to attract women into the world of technology? What is it that stops them wanting to come in? And so that was something that I worked on a lot in my previous company.
Excellent, thank you for that. And we've just got another question. So as a woman in a very male-dominated environment, what would be your advice to other women who want to break through to this level?
Well, it's a very good question. I mean, I have spent my entire career in male-dominated environments. I mean, when I joined my first accountancy firm that I joined, it was heavily male-dominated, and the world of tech is heavily male-dominated, and actually now in the utility world, it's slightly more balanced. And in fact, I'm very proud of the fact that I've got on my board at Severn Trent, I've got 56% of the board is women, so it's fantastic. So I think though that what you, yeah, I think actually my advice though to women trying to push through is the same as my advice would be to men, which is, you know, just there's no you know, to succeed. I think you've got to work hard, and you've got to just do a good job. Whether you're a guy or a girl, you just got to. If you come to work with a really positive attitude and you do a great job, then as Roger Carr, who's the chairman at BAE Systems, I once heard him say, "Do a good job, and the next job will take care of itself." And I really believe that passionately. I think that I don't believe that there are ceilings that you've got to break through. I think you obviously you want to join an organisation where that you feel has got an inclusive culture, and if it hasn't, then frankly you should call that out. But I think if you do a good job, you and you work hard, then you know you will progress. And it doesn't mean that you can't have a family. I mean, I was lucky enough to have one son, and it never stopped me. It didn't stop me, in fact, not at all. In fact, my career almost took off even more after he was born. And I think you know, you just find a way of managing it. And as you going back to your earlier point, you find a way of managing your time, because boy oh boy, when you've got a baby, you suddenly realize how much you need to manage your time very, very, very carefully, because and to keep your time separate. You know, when you're at work, be at work, and when you're at home, be at home, because actually otherwise you'll feel permanently seasick, like you should be. Oh, I'm in the wrong place. You know, this is. So I would say to everybody, to the women out there, there is nothing. Just aim high, work hard, and aim high, and you'll be fine. And there are opportunities out there, more so than ever before.
That's excellent. Thank you. And another question we just got in live. So, what are your thoughts on failing first to succeed, and how do you prepare mentally for this?
Well, I think, you know, I always say that you should never be afraid to have failures, to make mistakes. In fact, you know, we all learn way, way more from the things that have gone wrong than the things that have gone well. And, you know, I've had things in my career that have not been great, and you, at the time you think, oh my word, this is, you know, the end is nigh. And actually, you know, you soon realize that you dust yourself down, you learn from it, and you bounce back. And so I would say don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, because otherwise you'll never take any risks, or you'll never and it's okay. I mean, I know people who won't employ others unless they can point to things that have not been a success, because actually they know that those, you know, you learn a lot from those, you know, getting those scars.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Christine. And one last question, because I know you've got to shoot off. There's going to be a lot of young people out there who are sort of challenged about what their next steps are going to be and their pathways, and maybe a little bit confused and a little bit directionless. What's your advice to them who are feeling a little bit worried about what their next pathway is going to be like?
I would say, first of all, it's perfectly understandable that you feel like that. But I would say just be proactive. And as I mentioned earlier, be curious. So talk to people, talk to your family about the jobs that they do, talk to friends or family friends, you know, try and make as many connections as possible. Go online, do lots of homework, look in your local area and see. Obviously, you get your school or your college to help as much as possible. I mean, try and use every single avenue you can. Don't be afraid to knock on doors and ask for help. And I would say be positive. You know, as I said earlier, with the government promising every young person an apprenticeship, then that sort of thing is key. And I think apprenticeships are fantastic.
That's brilliant advice. Well, Christine, we'll leave it there because I know you've got to run off, but thank you so much for coming on Careers and
Thank
Coffee.
you, Jordan. It's been my pleasure, and good luck to all the young people listening. I wish you lots of success.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So, folks, that was Christine Hodgson, Chair of Careers Enterprise Company, Chair of Severn Trent, Non-Exec Director of Standard Chartered Bank. Fingers crossed I've got all of those correct. sharing her advice to support young people and some of the skills that she looks for at all of her different organisations as well. So whilst you're here, if you can fill in our survey below, just gives us an idea of the sort of guests you want to see on Careers and Coffee when we launch next time. And you can see all of the details below for Christine as well. So that's Careers and Coffee done for this week. Next week, I'm delighted to actually be welcoming two friends of mine. On Tuesday, we have Lena Hogg. So Lena's fantastic local business leader, brilliant career in HR, and she's also got a socially conscious business called Aria Candle. So we'll be speaking to Lena on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, speaking to Graham Kill. So Graham used to be the chief executive of Adetto for a number of different years, lived everywhere from Beijing to Amsterdam and everywhere in between. So he'll give us fantastic insight into working at Adetto as well. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, 12:30 to 1, tune in here on New Anglia Labs YouTube channel. Cheers.